was now 2 weeks since Malcolm had created and posted an ad looking for a roommate. He didn't know how it would work out, but almost immediately he was taking calls from prospective roommates. Some young, some old, some male, some female. Some even looking for a place to crash just for a few months. No matter who it was, Malcolm would find some reason to deny each of them, finding himself in the same place he started. With the day for his surgery coming, he still would attend team practices. Although he didn't play, he was still highly involved with the teams day to day, and he would still be till the end of the season. Yet there was a growing disconnect within him with his team and the sport he so dearly loved. He scheduled a time to talk with his coach to voice these growing doubts, which his coach explained he had heard from several players through the years when they had been injured and were out for a period of time. The coach directed him to keep his mind right, telling him he may not be able to play just yet, but if he kept his mind in the game, he'd become a much advanced player once he could. He also gave him a card of a therapist that could further help him through the journey of being an injured player. Malcolm took the advice and scheduled an appointment with a therapist as soon as was possible. Back on the roommate search, Malcolm then met with an interesting prospect named Heath. That seemed like a good fit. He was about the same age as Malcolm's brother. He was employed as an art curator and had a deposit and first month's rent ready. Malcolm showed Heath the grounds to his property as they talked on numerous subjects like family, schools attended, places they traveled, and future aspirations. Malcolm found him rather interesting and someone he could see being a welcome guest in his home. Along the way, Malcolm wondered if any of the prospects knew who he was or even followed baseball. Yet in the end, the question would always come up to what Malcolm did for a living, giving him the opportunity to share. Of all the people he interviewed, no one's reaction was more than his current prospect, Heath, which endeared him to Malcolm. But Heath was a Cubs fan, which was a rival to Malcolm's LA team. Upon the end of the tour, Malcolm felt good about Heath and was ready to pull the trigger and choose him as his roommate. The two shook hands and sealed the deal, taking his first month's rent. A day before Malcolm's surgery found his LA team on a 5-game win streak, with a very slim chance of still making the playoffs. It also was moving in day for Heath, to which Malcolm gave him all the instructions needed to maintain till he could be back from his hospital stay. Heath seemed ready as Malcolm was still going through all the ups and downs of dealing with his injury. That night, his LA team continued their streak as he lay in a hospital bed set for surgery early the next morning. He wanted to be happy, yet happy for him meant being on the field. Overnight, Malcolm dreamed of living life with a roommate. Coming the next morning, Malcolm went into surgery, only seeing the text from his family wishing him well just before going under. When he awoke, he was still groggy from the anesthesia, barely able to keep his eyes open. He was in that state for nearly an hour, fluttering between consciousness and dreaming. At a certain point, he remembered flirting with a nurse who came to check up on him, claiming she was his long-lost love, to which she played along with, telling him she'd always be with him. But for now, she had to go. Hours later, Malcolm was back to his normal self, but extremely tired, so he lay in bed till the doctor came and told him that the surgery had gone well, and that come the next day, if all things checked out, he could go home. Malcolm thanked the doctor for taking care of him, and then slowly drifted back to sleep. In his incoherent state, he dreamed of some bizarre things that included his family, his career, the dread of having a roommate, to some pleasant things like Candace or his new love, Nurse Edie. The one night Malcolm spent in the hospital was a long one, used to his own comfy bed and calm atmosphere, he was able to make it through a night that tested everyone. The next morning, he got the okay to go home from his doctor. As he prepared himself to leave, Nurse Edie approached Malcolm, giving him her number and expecting him to call. By the time Malcolm was finally released, his arm in a sling, his new roommate Heath unexpectedly arrived to drive him home, as Malcolm was in no position to drive himself. Then, as they left the hospital, Malcolm began to realize he would now begin the journey of his recovery.